Welcome back to our series of training videos devoted to the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure. As you remember, Acronis Cyber Infrastructure represents a new generation of the so-called Hyper-Converged Infrastructure, targeted at both managed service providers and end customers. It aims to be the ideal infrastructure for storing and running cyber protection workloads that combines universal storage services and high-performance virtualization. It is a cost-efficient, multi-purpose solution that enables the scaling out or scaling up of your infrastructure as your business grows. Deployed at Acronis data centers worldwide, Acronis Cyber Infrastructure stores nearly 200 petabytes of data that's being backed up from more than 125,000 servers, PCs, and mobile devices. In this video, we'll have a look at two hot scenarios for the use of Acronis Cyber Infrastructure. The first scenario assumes that Acronis Cyber Infrastructure is used by a managed service provider who offers a number of virtualization services to their end customers. In turn, the second scenario implies that the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure is used by a large enterprise, which is planning to implement new corporate software, for example, a sophisticated ERP system. The enterprise considers several potential solutions for competing vendors. Thus, the IT department of the enterprise deploys a number of virtual machines and installs the desired ERP systems on those virtual machines so that all employees from all departments are able to access, test, and evaluate the installed ERP systems. Although those two scenarios differ from each other significantly, the course of action to be done within Acronis Cyber Infrastructure is similar. So let's get started. We assume that you've got a system admin account for the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure. It should be noted that within the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure, there are two types of administrators, that is, system and domain administrators. The system administrators have full control over the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure. They are usually IT administrators of a managed service provider or the main IT department of a large enterprise, depending on your business case. In turn, domain administrators are in charge of managing the so-called domains. Domains are the abstracted entities corresponding to specific end user or enterprise virtualization projects, depending on your business case. Thus, a domain administrator can be, for instance, an IT administrator of an end customer, or an IT administrator of an enterprise subsidiary. The domain administrators are able to deploy and manage a wide range of entities, such as virtual machines, images, volumes, networks, routers, floating IPs, and SSH keys with the corresponding quotas. However, they have certain limitations. For instance, they cannot migrate virtual machines between hosts. You need to deploy a virtual machine for a specific end customer or enterprise virtualization project, depending on your business case. Thus, in terms of the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure terminology, you need to create a domain. Within that domain, you need to create a project, and within that project, deploy a virtual machine. In order to create a new domain, log into the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure as a system administrator. And navigate to Settings, and then Projects and Users. Press the Create Domain button in the upper right corner. Specify a name and description for the new domain. Press the Create button and complete the operation. As the next step, you need to create an admin account for the new domain. Thus, click on the newly created domain and press the Create User button. Specify login, password, email, description, and user role for the new administrator. As an option, you can allow the new domain administrator to upload images to the system. Press the Create button. Within each domain, you can create an unlimited number of smaller projects. For example, you can create a domain for an enterprise's subsidiary, and within that domain, you can create a number of projects to virtualize and test different software products for the corresponding departments. For instance, you can create one project for virtualizing and testing an ERP system, and another project for testing a business intelligence system. In order to create a new project, navigate to the Projects tab and press the Create Project button. On the project level, you can define the amount of available resources, such as compute cores and RAM, storage policy, storage space, and floating IP addresses. Once these parameters are set, press the Create button. Please notice that if your domain consists of just one project, you still have to create that project with the corresponding domain. It should be noted that system administrators can customize the user interface of the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure for the corresponding domain customers. This can be beneficially used, for example, by managed service providers offering their branded virtualization service for end customers. In order to customize the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure UI for the domain customers, navigate to Settings and then Self-Service. Here you can amend the login screen, the color scheme, logo, header, and other UI components. As the next step, you need to make sure that you have a sufficient amount of CPU, RAM, storage, and network resources available for the deployment of the new virtual machines. Those operations are performed by the system administrators for all domains. First, let's have a look at the CPUs and RAM. Thus, being logged in as a system administrator, navigate to Compute and then Overview. Here you can get the information about the availability of computing resources for the whole compute cluster. You can get more fine-grained information about the physical and logical space usage for each node by navigating to Compute and then Nodes. Here you can see all of the available nodes. By clicking on the corresponding node, you can get more information about its status, including the used CPUs and the reserved RAM. You can add a new node by pressing the Add Node button in the upper right corner. Select a desired node or nodes from the storage cluster that are not assigned to any compute cluster yet. Click the gear icon next to the node name and select the proper network interface for each role. Press the Add button to complete the operation. When you add a new node, its CPU and RAM capacities are added to the overall pool of resources. You can easily access that pool by navigating to Compute and then Overview. Let's have a look at the second component required for deploying virtual machines. That is, storage. Thus, navigate to Compute and then Storage. Here you can see a list of storage volumes that are created and attached to the specific virtual machines. You can create a new storage volume immediately at the stage of the virtual machine's creation. All volumes are assigned a storage policy to it. A storage policy is a set of predefined characteristics for storage volumes that include redundancy, tier, and failure domain. For example, if you have multiple disk types such as HDD or SSD, you might want to combine HDD disks into one tier and name it cold storage. In turn, SSD disks could be combined into another tier for hot storage and used for deployment of faster and more sophisticated virtual machines. One of the advantages of Acronis Cyber Infrastructure, as compared to traditional infrastructure, is the ability to set per VM storage policies. We recommend creating at least several reusable storage policies. It will allow you to provide the required levels of storage performance and redundancy for the target audiences according to the corresponding service level agreements. For instance, you can create the gold tier that will consist of only flash drives, the silver tier which will use spinning drives for data and flash drives for caching, and the bronze tier that will consist only of SATA spinning disks. In order to create a new storage policy, navigate to the Storage Policies tab and press the Create Storage Policy button. Specify a name, tier, failure domain, and erasure coding or replication schemes for the new storage policy. We recommend selecting Host for the failure domain. Press the Create button to complete the operation. In order to create a new virtual machine, you need to upload a new image to the system. Navigate to Compute and then Virtual Machines. Click on the Images tab. Press the Add Image button and browse the desired image location on your local machine. Please notice that you can mount two types of images. First, you can mount standard ISO images. Second, you can use some template images. For example, you can create a template image from one of your virtual machines in order to preserve its pre-installed operating system and all the settings. You can use that template for a mass deployment of virtual machines with the same configuration and settings. Please notice that the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure supports a wide range of Windows and Linux operating systems for the deployment of virtual machines. Moreover, it uses a number of patented innovations to optimize the performance of the deployed VM. For example, the deployment of Windows-based VMs resembles the Hyper-V virtualization. It means that by deploying a Windows-based VM, Acronis Cyber Infrastructure uses a number of virtual I/O drivers and other tools that boost its performance. As a result, the VM's performance becomes comparable to the performance of similar VMs deployed on Hyper-V. Specify a name for the new image and a suitable operating system from the drop-down list. Tick the checkbox Share between all projects if you want to use this image as a template for future deployments. Press the Add button to complete the operation. Navigate to the Flavors tab. Here you can create and manage additional templates with predefined settings that can be used for creating new virtual machines. VM flavors include such parameters as the number of virtual CPUs and allocated memory. Let's have a look at the third component required for deploying a virtual machine, and that's networking. Thus, navigate to Compute and then Networks. Here you can create a private virtual network for your virtual machines. In this case, your virtual machines will be able to communicate with each other within the corresponding private network. However, they will not be able to communicate with external physical networks. Along with private virtual networks, you can create a public network and make your virtual machines accessible through an external physical network. In order to create a new private or public network, press the Create Virtual Network button and specify the type of new network, that is, public or private. Provide a name for the new network, subnet IP address, and a gateway. Press the Next button to proceed to the next step. As an option, if you would like to automatically get IP addresses for your virtual machines, you might want to enable the built-in DHCP server. Press the Create Virtual Network button to complete the whole process. Along with private and public networks, you can create floating IPs. A floating IP is a public IP address that you can manually assign to a private IP address of a specific virtual machine. Thus, your virtual machine can be accessed via the internet, even if it doesn't have a public network. To summarize, you just allocated a sufficient amount of CPU, RAM, storage, and network for your domain and projects. So you're basically ready to create your first virtual machine within the Acronis Cyber Infrastructure. We'll have a look at this process in the next video. Stay tuned.